everyone. Welcome back to Chip Stock Investor. This is the second video. I guess really the first video though, where we're actually going to talk about a specific chip stock. And so I thought, what better place to start than with Intel when we're talking about semiconductor businesses. Intel, sometimes sarcastically, sometimes fondly referred to as Chipzilla, has been the dominant player in the chip industry for decades. And we take a lot for granted regarding what Intel has done over the years. A lot of the computing technology we use every day, Intel helped pioneer. But in recent years, Intel has fallen on, I won't say hard times, but they've definitely fallen behind the technology curve. And they're possibly headed for some very difficult times. Perhaps you've seen the Intel stock price absolutely plummet here, which is unusual for a big giant company like Intel that's a staple of the economy. But Intel has really fallen behind to companies like AMD. They've been losing market share to AMD, both on the data center front, but also consumer electronics. AMD has really been picking up steam for years, but then also in a new emerging type of chip called computing accelerators. NVIDIA has done a lot of work pioneering that. AMD has also jumped on that bandwagon, and Intel's kind of almost an insignificant player there for the moment. Perhaps they can turn that around, but I think it's very telling that Intel is losing ground all right at the wrong time. There's a slowdown in consumer spending on electronics. So there are a lot of chip companies that are getting hit pretty hard right now because of that upcoming slowdown in consumer spending. But in addition to that, it is really telling that Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger said on the last earnings call that they actually expect to continue losing market share for at least a couple of years, specifically in the data center segment. And paired with the consumer spending slowdown, things aren't looking so great for Intel. They actually expect a 16% decline in revenue for 2022. And what that means for earnings per share, they expect somewhere between like a 47 and 58% year over year decline in earnings. And then the free cash flow was over 11 billion last year. It's headed for zero, possibly even -1 to -2 billion. And the reason why that is Intel has a lot of work to do to play catch up to companies like AMD and NVIDIA, but also they're really sort of hanging their hat on manufacturing. So Intel doesn't just design chips, they also manufacture them. They have all this extra manufacturing capacity as their revenue declines. So they foresee making this transition where they open up that manufacturing to other chip companies that only do design work. And that's going to take many years, though, for them to make that transition. Firing up a new chip fab, a new manufacturing facility, costs a lot of money, thus the free cash flow going to zero or worse this year. And it takes years to get these things up and running at full capacity. So I don't see any near-term catalyst for Intel anytime soon. You may see the stock trades for about 6 times trailing 12-month earnings, about 15 to 16 trailing 12-month free cash flow. That's going to change dramatically, though, in the next year as the earnings and free cash flow both decline. So this is not a cheap stock like it may appear to be. This is one I'm staying away from for now. While I am rooting for Intel to make this turnaround, I think this is going to be a multi-year story. Exercising some patience with Intel before making a buy, I think will be very beneficial. But how about stocks? I do like, it's going to be a busy week coming up. NVIDIA and Qualcomm, two of my favorites. NVIDIA has their GPU technology conference that starts on Tuesday. Qualcomm is hosting an automotive investor day on Thursday. That should be really interesting to see what Qualcomm is doing for automotive technology. Stay tuned for that. I'll be posting some updates and highlights from those two events. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, again, for those updates on NVIDIA and Qualcomm later this week. And I will see you all again soon.